You know what I've noticed? I watched the last 2 podcasts, and I'm super loud right as the podcast start, and it annoyed me even. So I just want to ease into this one. Okay, are we ready? The podcast is now beginning. Thank you for joining us. We hope to have a very enlightening conversation today.
Is it beginning?
Roll the intro, Raphael!
When the kids are counting sheep, when the kids go to sleep, dreams and memories. When the kids go to sleep.
I think you just spit on my microphone.
You complain about everything I do. I am not a perfect person.
I'm going to get it off. Okay, guys? It's good.
Did I just squeeze your boob?
Yeah. You did. He did.
Boobs? Let's talk about them.
No, why are we... What?
We were at FAO Schwartz in New York 2 days ago.
Speaking of what?
They had a lot of great boobs in the toy store in New York.
In the Barbie aisle?
No, they had this like science section where they have like actual dinosaur fossils that they sell.
Actual dinosaur
No, there was
fossils?
this little like that for $2,200. It was like in this like old.
What?
It's like a little dinosaur thing, and it's like I can't remember the name of the place, but anyways, Cassim was excited to go there. But in that same section, they had this like I don't know how to explain it, like a plastic life-size replica of the inside of a human body, and it showed like a baby inside of it, and it was like a puzzle where you could take it apart. There's like plastic overlay, you take it apart, and it was like all the female parts, you know, all the insides, like the little baby, so you could like put the inside of the body together, and the boobs are there, and they're just like this like yellow fat like tissue, and I was like, why are those like bags of fat so attractive? Was that a boner noise you just made, Roth?
Well, welcome to the podcast. We're having a lesson on sex
but
education
it is.
today.
They're like for dudes, they're like they're just round and just curvy. Like, why is that so? You know what I'm saying? It just like
I don't know. I'm not a dude. I don't get it.
Dudes know what I'm saying. It's like sometimes you can't help it. Like you're a good guy, you love your wife, but it's like you're walking and some chick.
Are you trying to admit to something right now?
I've stared at some cleavage before. It's hard, and you know I make a conscious effort to turn my head and to not like stare at it. You know, that's a lot of dudes. That's why they wear sunglasses out in public. It's like I am staring at boobs right now and nobody can tell. Dudes, admit it.
Goodness.
You do it. You do it. Ladies, if you're wearing a low-cut shirt and you're with dudes with glasses, I'm just saying. Now, I'm not a pervert. If dudes are honest, I'll admit it. I may be a little perverted sometimes. I'm just honest. But the point is,
I'm gonna take a break real quick.
It's getting hot in here. But the point is, dudes, I think it's not healthy to stare, to dwell on the nice, large roundness of it.
So are you trying to tell me you were staring at the puzzle?
No, but I was just looking at it, and I was just like in my mind reminiscing, thinking like, why are boobs so attractive? They're just
You were reminiscing.
It's like a sack of. I was reminiscing on all the great boobs in my life.
Why is this so entertaining?
They're just like
to
a
me right
sack
now?
of fat, you know.
Yeah.
And they're meant to just feed a kid. They're like you could be like a cow's udder.
That's all they're meant for.
They're meant for love and affection.
That's why our bodies are the way they are.
Why are they like that? Why are men attracted to boobs?
Because it's just that's the way it's meant to be, I guess.
Okay, so if there is a God,
are
and
all men attracted to boobs? Maybe some guys are like, ew.
yeah, I mean, gay guys don't think boobs are sexy.
Well, maybe they do.
I was in a never. I shouldn't tell that story. I was with Will. I was
Okay,
I was
stop.
with the Will
Okay,
of
you
DC
shouldn't tell that story. If you're gonna pre-curse the story with, maybe I shouldn't tell the story. I think you should stop. For my own comfort level
listen,
now.
Let me just say this. The Will of DC is a good friend of ours
this.
who is gay. And there was a situation at one point where I was there at a moment where he grabbed some boobs. And he had never grabbed boobs before. And there was a person there that was willing.
You were there for this moment?
There was like 12 people there.
What?
This was a couple years ago.
Okay.
And it was interesting to me.
I'm going to go.
I got this. Just get out of here. Go get some cleavage out and then come back. No, it's interesting because he was like, I've never grabbed boobs before. And he did. And he was like, I don't get it. And I was like, you don't get it? What? Anyways.
So you're not gay. That's good to know.
You finally figured that out.
I've been wondering. There was this one time.
Dude, I got accused. Over the past 5 years, I have been accused of being gay a lot of times. People are like, he's gay. Shay's gay. I'm like, I have 5 kids.
So?
I guess you can be gay.
Gay guys can have kids.
Yeah. You can be gay and have kids. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I don't know how the podcast started like that.
Shay clearly needed to get something off his chest.
Oh,
real
zing!
quick.
Pun. Yeah.
That makes me laugh.
Poops.
So, on that note,
Somebody wanted to talk us. Somebody wanted us to talk about the last days.
so
Where
you're
is
gonna
the podcast?
go
From boobs.
from
to the
boobs to the last days. We could talk about what we talked about with our child recently.
Oh, right. Okay, that's a good segue.
That's a good segue.
Yep. We had the sex talk with Suntard.
We did. What do you think about that?
I'm seeing a lot of people on here saying talk about money. How many shares of Maker do you own?
Oh, of course.
How much
everybody
money
is
you're going to get from
curious.
the Disney deal?
We just got to talk about sex and money. That's the podcast today.
Think about that though. Those are two majorly important things to humans. Why is that? Why is sex and money? It feels good, and money lets you do a lot of things that feel good.
Well, there's a lot of things that are important to humans.
I think our body, it's like we're so interested in this instant gratification. Something that just feels good right now that doesn't take a lot of effort. And that can be dangerous.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about the
Like
sex talk.
Yeah. Well, that dives into a whole nother
Okay, so
genre of topic. Okay.
sex and kids.
So let's talk about let's
Let's start it off like this way. Okay, so when did you get the sex talk?
Right.
Did you ever get the
Did
sex
you?
talk? Ron, did
Have you? Are
did-
you too young that you should not be listening to this talk right now?
No,
Maybe
I'm
you haven't
actually
had that.
listening for some critical information that I have not heard.
Ron's like, oh yes, okay, finally I'm going to find
It's been
out.
a while.
Did you ever get the sex talk from your parents? Did they ever sit you down and have a talk with you about it?
No, they never did.
Never?
I learned everything that I knew from school and other kids and
Yep.
magazines and
Mm-hmm.
VHS tapes, if you remember those.
If you remember though.
Roth, what about you? Did your parents ever sit you down and have it with you?
Nope, never had to say.
Never.
Never.
Blake? No, I'm still waiting. You're still waiting? So I also was never given this sex talk from my parents. Were you?
And I was not until the day before I got married.
Her mom gave her the sex talk the night before our
And
honeymoon.
At that point, I was like, okay.
Can you imagine that? Like, she's getting married the next day, and her mom is giving her the sex talk. What were you, 20 years old?
It was a different kind of talk at that point. I'm sure she knew that I knew most of
It was
things.
probably a
but
little bit more graphic
it
than
was
you
like-
would with that.
It was definitely, I was like,
What did she
okay.
say? What
I
did
don't
she
want
say?
to tell you what she said. It
Why?
just still burns in my brain.
Does it?
Mom, I love you if you're listening
Because
to
you
this.
picture her in the same act that she's teaching you
Okay,
about.
stop. Blah, 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 blah.
Parents have sex. So,
yeah.
okay, so out of this room, in this podcast, there's 5 of us. None of us ever were sat down and given the sex talk.
It's a generational thing, though. I don't think that.
I believe that is not good. That is
It is
not
not
healthy.
good. And I talked to my dad about it, actually, because I told him that we talked to Suntard about the talk. And he was like, I think that's so good. He's like, I just waited for you kids to ask, and some of you never asked, and so I never talked about it. But I think that in this generation, you have to be
Proactive about it.
in the offense,
Yeah.
not
Proactive.
not wait for you're on the defense.
Kids are
Does that
never
make
going to
sense?
ask. I mean, it's very rare.
Some kids do. Like,
yeah.
he was telling me when Sadie, my sister Sadie, we were all sitting around the dinner table. She's the middle child. And she says, can I say this?
Yeah. Yeah.
She goes, Dad, what's a boner? And of course, Candace and Adam are older and they knew. And they just like spit up their food and they're like, what? And then they started teasing her. It was just kind of like, a bad time to have that talk.
Yep.
But
So, I
some
mean,
kids are like, what is it? Talk to me. I need to
dude,
know.
when I was a kid, that made me so annoyed because I just wanted a grown-up or an authority figure to be like, this is this and that is that, especially when I was like at church and they were talking to us about things that you couldn't do, or not that you couldn't do, that you shouldn't do because you wanted to keep yourself morally clean.
Right.
And it's so funny as a kid, as a teenager, you're just like, well, what can I do? Well, it's like, what can I get away with?
I need to know the exact line that I can't cross,
they would say
so I can get as close to it as possible.
I remember a big term in the LDS church was you shouldn't participate in necking or petting. And I'm like, what is that? Putting
like
your
this.
necks together, like petting? But what they're saying is like,
Aw.
no French kissing and no like fondling of the other person's private parts. But I wanted it in that
But
plain
you need,
English.
Yeah, it's
I want like
you have to
tell
say that.
me what you're talking about. I need specific details.
I think you're
Can
getting
I
loud
touch
again.
her boobs? Sorry.
No.
So
You will
I,
not.
like Ron said, also learned pretty much everything I knew about sex from Trevor White and Shane Benson in the 8th grade locker room.
That is very educational.
Hey, Trevor and Shane, they had found not even one of their parents, they had found like one of the neighbor's kids' parents' pornography.
Oh.
And they were watching this movie. In 8th grade, they're watching this movie, and they were like, there's like 15 8th grade boys in the locker room.
That is really gross.
Gathered around, and they're telling the story about what happened in
But
this
it's
video.
really accurate, right?
That's what happens.
Because and that's why I feel like this is so messed up, because we're afraid to talk to our kids about sex,
Right. Yep.
what it really is and what it's for and why we, whatever, that, what it is, and including like your views on it or your values. Like if you don't tell your kids that, then they're going to learn it from pornography, which is for a 10-year-old or whatever. That's the worst place to learn about it, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Because then you don't respect it.
I've been shocked over the couple years that we've done YouTube videos, every time that we've talked about pornography, how many people will tweet me back or comment like, what's wrong with porn, Shay? It's fine. I mean,
I have a lot of problems with it.
and I think if most women are honest, they also,
Just the way that it portrays.
it's not accurate. It's not
Yeah.
accurate to a healthy, loving relationship. That's not how sex works in a loving, healthy relationship. Pornography is pure gratification. It's pure like what feels good right now. And then there's no long-term commitment. There's no, love. There's no love there. And that sets up sex without love sets you up for pain and heartache and problems.
So true.
Anyways, so I want to get back to the 8th grade locker room.
I don't want to go there.
No, I just remember like them telling this story and all of these kids sitting around here, and I'd just be like, what?
What?
Seriously?
What?
And like you said, that is the worst place for kids to learn about it. And I think a lot of parents, they feel uncomfortable. They feel like, oh, I don't want to talk to my kids about that. It's like, why not? You should have a relationship with your children where you can say anything and just talk. I don't know. I was excited to have the conversation.
Yeah.
And maybe that's...
He was too, because we actually,
yeah.
we said, okay, we're having a special day. And if they would ask questions, I'd be like, okay, we're going to have a special day next week where we're going to go, you and I and Dad are going to go have this talk. And we told him, like, if you have any questions about anything, be prepared to ask them then, because we will answer any questions whatsoever that you have. So
this is kind of how we did the talk. We told Gavin, and I had been bringing it up to him for probably the last couple months, and I had a few small talks because he was telling me that kids in his school, and I mean, he's 10 years old in 3rd grade, and there's already kids. I mean, it's happening so much sooner now. Like I said, I heard about it in 8th grade. Gavin's in 3rd grade, and kids are already talking about 4th grade. 4th grade, my bad.
But
4th
still,
grade.
I mean,
yeah, that's so
Avia's
young.
heard stuff too, and she's in
I
3rd
remember
grade,
in
so.
6th grade, the first people that I saw kiss was in 6th grade, and I was like blown away. I remember Jody and this girl named Leandra kissed.
The first people
Jody's
you saw
a boy.
kiss?
Jody's a boy. that sounded weird. My first lesbian kiss was in 6th grade. No, Jody's a guy.
No, what do you mean? Like, you never saw your parents kiss?
Well, no, like
a French kiss?
No,
like
they just kissed in class, and everybody was daring them to. They're like, you guys should kiss, because they're boyfriend and girlfriend, and we were all watching The Little Mermaid, and it was like at the end of The Little Mermaid, and then they kissed, and I was like,
You're
whoa,
so
that's
cute.
so weird. The Little Mermaid, yeah, that came out when I was in 6th grade, and I was dating this girl named Talia, and she had red hair.
And did you kiss Talia?
No, I never.
Did you sing her the
Talia.
song?
No, you see her. You're backtracking. Anyways.
I'm sorry. It's just really cute.
So we were telling Gavin that we're going to have the sex talk with him. And I had, like I said, had a few talks with him. And I remember like the morning that we were going to have the talk with him. Like, every morning the kids come into our room and we say a prayer. And then Colette or I take them to school. Mostly Colette takes them to school. And I remember Gavin giving me a hug that morning. And he goes like, today's a big day, Dad. And I'm like, it is. I'm like, are you talking about the sex talk? He's like, yep. I'm like, you ready? And he's like, yep. You could tell he was excited.
Yeah.
So we made it a special thing. We actually kind of like went out and made it a special night for Gavin. We got a babysitter for the other kids, and it was me, Colette, and Gavin. And
the baby.
And Daxton, because he was
I'm
interested
his
too.
power source. He was interested. He needed to know.
He's very interested in Colette's boobs. Because he breastfeeds, you perverts. Anyways, so it was just the four of us. Like, we wouldn't have brought the baby if he didn't need to be breastfed, but, he needed to be. So it was like we went out.
But it was kind of a good time to have him, because we went out. We went and sat on the grounds of the temple, the Mormon temple that's here in Los Angeles. And it's beautiful grounds if you've ever been there. It's just beautiful.
What street is that on? That's
on Santa Monica.
It's on Santa Monica.
Boulevard.
There's this giant temple, and it's like on this giant grass hill, and there's grass, and it's really, gardened and whatever. So,
but we wanted to start. We started with the creation, like how we were created and what we believe.
So don't get into that yet.
So it was good to have the baby there. That's why I wanted to say it was good to have the baby there to talk about like what happens when you have sex.
We kind of started talking. We kind of started talking about it in the truck on the way, because we thought we want to be at a place that is meaningful to us. So we went to the temple and we were walking around the grounds. But on the way in the truck is like a 30-minute drive, and I'm just like, can we start talking about it now? I was anxious. I was like, let's just get into this.
Break the ice. Let's just do it.
We did, and so on the ride there to the temple, we started talking about what sex was for. It was 1, for the creation of life, and 2, for love. And to strengthen relationships, and just because it feels good, and it strengthens you and that person's bond with each other when you can make love and look into each other's eyes as you're kissing and holding each other, and it's not just for gratification. Like, it does feel good. Sex does feel good, and it's okay to talk about that. But it also just strengthens this relationship that you have. And then when you can create a life from that love, it's just so amazing. Anyway, so we went to the temple. We sat down, and we just started talking to him. And we asked him, we said, so what do you think sex is? And he goes, I don't know, it's like 2 people making out when they're naked. And that's what he thought sex was. And so we got into the details. I explained it to him. At one point, I was like...
we don't need to say everything.
So maybe there are kids that are listening that don't want us to be the persons that talk to them about sex, and maybe their parents do. But we were not graphic, but I didn't beat around the bush. I told him what sex was.
Right.
Blake, you pervert.
Talked about body parts, and we talked about what happens.
Because I even remember when I was about his age and I was in the bathtub, sometimes I would get a boner.
And kids, if you're listening right now, you should probably pause and say, Mom and Dad. No, just kidding.
At dinner table. What's a boner?
At the dinner table.
And I remember thinking,
find out what that is.
I remember thinking to myself, oh, this is so embarrassing. What is happening to my body? Like, and I remember thinking in my mind, oh, this is when I get married and my wife sees this, it's going to be so embarrassing if she sees this thing that's happening to me.
So embarrassing.
And I'm going to have to hide it. I remember thinking that as a kid in the bathtub, thinking this is going to be so embarrassing when I get married one day and my wife sees this thing that happens to me. It's going to be embarrassing. And I remember, I'm going way out on the limb here. I remember my mom, my mom came in and I'm like, Mom, what's this? And she's like, come here. And she took me out of the bathtub, soaking wet, into the living room where my dad was sitting on the couch. She's like, Carl, explain that to him. And I'm standing there butt naked with this boner, and my dad's like...
I can just see your dad.
Like, my mom just like comes into the room like, Carl, explain this to him. And I'm like standing there like, what? What's wrong with me?
What's wrong with me?
Raph and Ron are cracking up in the other room. And I don't even remember that my dad gave me an explanation. He just said something like, well, it just happens to your body. So I think he at least taught me that it was normal and I wasn't some freak. But I was like, what's happening?
Oh, that's funny.
So we like talked about that with Gavin. We told him about, how you use that
We don't need to tell everything.
Okay.
But yes, we were very detailed. And I think most importantly, we wanted him to just be well informed. And because he originally asked me.
Oh, right.
Should I tell him?
Yes, of course.
He asked me, we were in the grocery store with the kids. And he just looked at me and said, Mom, what's rape? And I was like, oh, what?
Right.
In the grocery store with all the other kids, it was like, I was really taken back. I'm like, where did you hear that? And he said, well, just some kids at school are joking about it. And that really got me. Like, he needs to know. like, he can't just be told by kids that are joking about rape. Like, they clearly probably don't know themselves, and so they're joking about it. And that's why I wanted him to know so that he can be armed with knowledge. I feel like it's power. Knowledge is power.
For sure.
And if you give it to him in the right way and let him know that now that you know this, you need to take care of it and be responsible for it. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. So these kids were like humping trees at school and like humping things at school and saying, I'm going to rape you. I'm going to rape you. And I asked him, I'm like, why are these kids talking about that? Now, I know this will piss some people off, but he said, he goes, well, these kids are always playing Grand Theft Auto 5, and so they're always talking about it. And they said that there's like a strip club scene in Grand Theft Auto 5. And I'm like, whose parents are letting their 4th grade kid play Grand Theft Auto?
Mm-hmm.
And they're learning about, because and then they're like joking about rape. I'm like, how is that a good thing? How can people say that Grand Theft Auto doesn't affect your behavior? Bull crap. It does. If you let a young, innocent child who doesn't know anything about sex or any of these adult topics play a video game where you shoot and get lap dances, how is that good for anybody, especially a child? Anyways, so, knowledge is power, because I don't want our son learning these things from stupid kids at school who have no idea what they're talking about and claim, how kids get prideful.
Oh, I know everything.
I know about sex. And they don't, and it's very unhealthy. And so I would just to protect our kids, tell them the truth and make sure that they know that we're not lying to you. Like I told him that. I said, we will tell you everything. We are not holding anything back from you. If you have a question about anything, Gavin, ask me. I am going to tell you the truth. And we did. We gave him a lot of information.
And not only does that arm him with knowledge, it opened up our relationship with him. So
he can
in
trust
the
us
future,
now.
he knows if he has any questions about anything, he can ask us. He doesn't have to, if it's about drugs or girls or just anything. And he can talk to us.
Yeah, and I told him that. I said, dude, I'm serious. I don't care what it is. If you have a question about anything, you come to me or mom first, and we will tell you the truth. You will not be in trouble no matter what it is. You can ask us. You can talk to us about it, and we will tell you. I will not hold anything back from you. And we did. We talked for over an hour. We talked about rape. We talked about pregnancy, about sex, how it works. Abortion. So we were sitting there.
Normally we wouldn't just unload, but it
just
was
happened.
On by questions.
Oh, yeah.
He had more questions, and so it just and it was a really great great conversation.
It was fun because it was freeing, knowledge is power and knowledge will set you free. It felt that way. It wasn't like, okay, Gavin, this and this and this. It was like we would just talk about something and we felt it out. It wasn't like we just dropped all this heavy knowledge onto him. It was like he would ask a question and we'd start talking about it, and then that line of conversation would lead to something else. And this was a very poignant moment, and then you guys know from watching our Shaytards vlogs how sensitive Gavin is. So somehow we got on the topic of abortion and talked about, some women choose to, abort their babies.
Because he was confused that women that weren't married had been raped. Women that weren't married that had kids had been raped. And so we had that talk about how, it feels good. And so, they might do it, but then that creates a child and they don't necessarily want it sometimes. Yeah. And this conversation. So then we told him that some women choose to abort the babies.
And he sat there. So we explained what abortion was to him. And then he just kind of sat there for a minute. And we paused and weren't talking about anything. And he was just really quiet. And I was like, what's the matter? And I'm like, are you okay, dude? And he just looks up to me and he starts bawling and he's just crying. And I'm like, what's the matter? He's
like, sorry, did we say too much? I was like, oh no.
He's crying and he looks at me, he's like, it's not the baby's fault. And I'm just like, oh, just broke my heart because he was crying over thinking about babies dying because people didn't want these babies. And I was like, well, there's different circumstances, and sometimes it's a bad decision. We believe, if you want to know what we believe about abortion, I believe abortion is okay in the forms of if somebody gets raped or if there's incest involved. But other than that, I don't believe you should take a life.
It's hard for me because I personally believe that once it's connected inside the body, that's a life. And so it's really hard for me to say.
It's a debate as old as time.
This and this.
You can fight about it all day.
You have to make that decision for yourself.
Everybody has to make that decision for themselves. But in my mind, you infringe on somebody else's agency when you take away their life. So I know a lot of people can say, well, it's my body. I can do what I want with it. Well, you can do what you want with it, but the second you create a life inside of you, and
that's their body.
The debate is, when is that actually a life? At what point? At
I know
4
this
weeks?
is
At 20 weeks? At 25 weeks?
ongoing debates
Yeah,
forever.
and that's not the point of this conversation.
Right.
Anyways, so it was a good talk that we had with him.
And it was really awesome. At the end, we just kind of asked him, what do you think? And like, are you overwhelmed? How are you feeling? And he said, I definitely have a lot more respect for it now. And it was
when he said
so
that, I was
sweet.
like, you're so mature, dude. He's so grown up sometimes.
But I was really glad, because now when he hears stuff at school, then in his mind, he can be like, I know about that.
Yeah, he can.
And we definitely had the talk, like, this is something important you don't need to talk about with other kids. You don't need to joke about it. Like, it's a special thing. So.
And then like a couple days later, Colette actually has this book that's titled How to Talk to Your Kids About Sex. And
it's a really good book.
And she had left it out on like the table.
No, Baby Tard was going through my bag looking for sugar because she thought I would have candy in there, which I didn't. But she was looking through the bag, and she pulled it out, and she was just kind of looking at it, and then she like threw it on the couch, and Gavin picked it up, and he looks at it and he goes, "Mom," and points to it like, It's like, yeah, thanks.
You've been reading up on this, haven't you?
I'm like, oh, I see. I see.
So I think, every kid is different, and I think we'll probably have the talk with Princess Tard very soon. Mm-hmm. Maybe we'll wait a little bit, and
it will definitely not be exactly the same.
Yeah, it'll just.
You need to feel it out and see where.
But my advice to parents out there, if there are parents listening, or even if there are kids listening, and you feel like, how do I talk to my parents about that? I think kids should just be blunt and bold and go up to their parents and say, Mom and Dad, I want to have the sex talk. And I think
it's hard too, because sometimes parents are not ready. And,
right.
And, I've talked to some of my friends that were like, tried to talk to their parents about it and were shut down. And that can be really difficult. And I'm sorry if that is your situation.
Yeah. I think you should at least try, and if not, then maybe we'll have another podcast where we'll give you the sex talk. If this one didn't do enough.
Probably not, but
but yeah, I think parents should have the courage to sit down with their kids and tell them the truth. And like we said, sex isn't a bad thing. Sex is a great thing. Sex can be, but it can be twisted. That's another thing that we told Gavin. We said, dude, sex is amazing. Like me and he kind of got that embarrassed when I'm like, I love making love to your mom. Like, she's beautiful, and it like strengthens our relationship. But you want to save that for the one person that is your best friend, for that person that's going to be your lifelong companion, and that person that's going to, that you can trust and that you can tell everything to and give everything to. And he really liked that. You could tell that really made a lot of sense to him.
Because once you give that, I don't know, because it is such a strong thing to create love, not just lust, that it's important.
Just like, The Power of Habit, the book that we were talking about last night, and, anything that brings you instant gratification that doesn't require work is not good for you. Whatever it is, whether it's, a quick smoke to get you that nicotine high, whether it's pornography that
McDonald's
drive-through, just anything that is in the world that doesn't require a little bit of effort or commitment that makes you feel happy right then and there, ultimately is not good for your well-being, whether it's physically, spiritually, or mentally. We are, and people have fought that for ages. It's something that requires more of that thing to satisfy, and then your what's the word? Your resistance, like you need more of it.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what the word is though.
I can't think of words. Anyways, I can't think of the word. Anyways, okay, so let's take a few Twitter questions.
Well, you have to finish your thought.
I can't. I lost it. I lost my thought.
It's like when you have to have something, then you have to have it even more.
Yeah, your tolerance.
Your tolerance.
Right? What's it called? Like, takes more weed to get you high, more alcohol to get you drunk.
Oh, your
tolerance. Tolerance?
That would be tolerance. Yes. Ding, 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 ding.
For 10 points.
We did it.
Did we just get a round of applause? Yeah, something, like anything that that you need to take that requires more and more and more. Like, it's just a never-ending cycle. It's just a vicious cycle. Okay, let's go to a few Twitter questions. How long are we at here? Here's a question from Amanda Marceau. What's your opinion on women wearing makeup and men? Put into biblical views that the days are like now.
What?
I don't know. I think women can wear makeup. I think if you're a dude, you want to wear makeup, that's fine. I don't know.
Whew.
Ron wears some guy liner every once in a while. I mean, we could talk about our kids, like the girls getting their ears pierced. Avia wants to get her ears pierced right now. Like
She does want it so bad.
That's a pretty big debate in our house right now. But you originally said you were 12, right?
I said 12 because I had to wait till I was 12, and the reasons are being a couple reasons. Because it takes a lot of responsibility. Like, you've got to clean them, you got to take care of them. It's a responsible thing. You need to take care of yourself. And it sort of goes with the hygiene thing, learning to take care of yourself, because sometimes kids don't do that very well. So
I would like to quote.
It goes with that. Go ahead.
I would like to quote Macklemore, a great prophet of our days, when he said, "The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing that women look better in their makeup."
Oh.
That's a line from a Macklemore song. Think about this. Piercing your ear. You're going to put a hole in your body. You got this like little piece of skin that helps you hear conversations. I know. Let's get a big sharp thing and poke a hole in it, and then we'll hang metal off of it.
But
Think
here's the
about
thing.
That's a weird
It
concept,
is a weird
right?
concept.
Like,
but it's
how
fun
did that
for
start?
girls.
Why is it fun, though?
Because they like
think,
to accessorize.
But they think it makes them look pretty.
It's fun to accessorize. It's like you have a picture frame and you have this piece of art and you're like trying to decorate the picture frame. It's like, it's pretty. It's fun.
But why mess with a masterpiece?
Well, that's really sweet of you.
Think about that.
That's
Why?
wise.
If you really like get down to the concept of what makeup and dress and earrings, it's just like, you're beautiful already. Why put paint? Like, it's like, I'm gonna paint some sparkles here. You know, it's all about attracting.
I'm so pretty.
Isn't it about initially attracting men? Like, you know, like to make it's
I
like
don't know.
it's like animals do
when-
it in the wild, like to make their like flashy colors
when
to get
girls
attracted.
first want to wear makeup and do all that stuff, it's not to attract men. It's fun.
Why is it
we
fun
like
though?
we're crafty and we're just creatures that like to make things beautiful.
And you don't think you're beautiful without your makeup?
No. No, I was actually talking about this with Cecily. She doesn't have her ears pierced, and her mom wouldn't let her get them pierced until she was 18. So when she was actually 18, then she was like, but I like my ears the way they are. And
Yeah.
I liked that because that's one of the things that as like a young girl and a teenager, you're just figuring out who you are. And it's not until later in life that you like finally accept who you are and the way your body looks and the way you are. So that's why I think it's good to wait to get your ears pierced. But at the same time, I don't want to make her wait forever because I got them pierced when I was 12.
So how old is she going to be? 12? But see, okay, so initially when we had daughters, Colette said, I got my ears pierced when I was 12. I'm going to make them wait till they're 12. Then our 9-year-old daughter comes in the other day, and Colette's like, I think it's okay if you want to let her. And I'm like, no, I thought we agreed on 12. We're 3 years premature.
I know. I just need to stick my ground because I understand where she's coming from.
And now
because
Colette's like,
I
let's let her
remember
get 'em done.
being her age thinking, just please let me get my ears pierced. But then it's like once you get them pierced, it's like, what was the big deal? It's not like
right.
after you change them a few times, then it's like, oh, okay.
That's what I tell Avia
My ears
all
are
the time.
pierced.
She's in such a rush to grow up. I'm like, Avia, you're only a kid for a little while. Just enjoy being a kid. Like, you will grow up and you will be an adult for a long time. You'll be an adult longer than you'll be a kid. But when you're a kid, like, you don't want to hear that. Like, she wants to be a grown up now. Like, that girl, she wants to run the world.
So
When we were in New York, everywhere we went. See, you know how most kids around that age, like, for instance, I had to go buy a suit for this presentation I did for the Maker New Fronts. We go into the suit store. Gavin and Emmy, they're like normal kids. They're just sitting there like, oh, when's Dad going to be done?
When are we going to be done?
Avia's not like that at all. If we're going into a suit store, it's like Avia is like, okay, she assesses the situation. What are we doing? We're getting a suit for Dad. Okay, how can we do this the fastest and the best? And she's like, Dad, that suit right there, I think that one looks good. So I try on the pants. The pants are way too long. Like, I can't alter them before my presentation. Avia jumps right in. She's like, okay, Dad, we don't have time for that. But what you could do is you could wear those black pants with that suit coat. And I'm like, oh, you're right. I didn't even think about that. And the guy, the clerk at the suit store, he's like, I like her. She's like, Dad, this tie will look good with this. And she just like, she is if she could be in control and in charge of everything, she would be.
And her favorite thing is, Mom, it's not organized. I need it to be organized. Like, she's a very organized
We check in at
person.
the airport. She wants to hold all the tickets. She wants to give the baggage to the lady. It's like I'm just like, you're a kid. Slow down. Just be a kid
I love
for a
it,
while.
though. She's going to be very successful, I think.
Okay, we got to wrap it up. But I do want to tell a story when we first got married, and it was like we were like first year of our marriage, and I was like sitting in the bathroom, and me and Colette were talking. This was in the morning, and she was putting her makeup on, and I was sitting there on the toilet. You remember this?
Yes.
I was sitting there on the toilet, and we're just talking, and I'm like watching her. I had never like
And
sat
I'm putting
down.
my makeup on.
I'd never like watched the process of makeup in my whole life until we got married. I've never like watched a girl. I mean, I'd seen my mom doing it, but I've never like actually watched the whole procedure that they go through. So, I mean, we both go in the bathroom at the same time. She's doing her makeup, and I'm watching this, and we're talking. And about halfway through, I didn't even think. I just said this. I'm like, wow, that really works.
You said, like, that really makes a big difference.
Like, wow, that really makes a big difference.
And I was like, what?
And I'm like, no, you're beautiful without your makeup on.
Which it's true. I know that. That's why I do that. But just the fact that he acknowledged
But
it.
just like, you know, when
was
you wake
like,
up in the morning and then she's
You're
like,
supposed to love me no matter
she's
what.
putting all of her foundation on. I'm like, oh, wow, your skin looks way smoother. And just like looks a lot. And I was just like, wow, that really works. And then I didn't even think about it. She's like, what? I'm like, no, I mean, you're beautiful without your makeup, but you look a lot better now.
That's funny.
Interesting life we live. Try to figure it out. We are one day at a time.
Yeah, sorry if it was a little TMI for you today, but
Hey.
hey,
That's how it
These
should
are the
be.
podcasts.
This is real life every day right here.
we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching.